All right, everyone, welcome in. It's almost 5:30 here on Thursday night, November 16th. It's getting a little dark, but Hokie football is just around the corner here. Got a big one versus NC State on Saturday at 3:30. This is Pat, and you're listening to the Sons of Saturday, and we have a very special guest because when you talk about Hokie history, you talk about Hokie Bowl wins, and you talk about Hokie games versus the NC State Wolfpack. The name Chris Kinzer and the phrase "the kick" definitely do not escape your memory. So we got Chris Kinzer here from Pulaski County, Virginia, Spotsylvania County now, it sounds like. And Chris, welcome to the show. How's everything going?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Everything's great. Really nice.
Love it. Well, we're fired up to chat with you for a few minutes here. For those who don't know, and here's the thing. Listen, I was born in '94. The kick, the famous kick, it happened when my dad and my uncle were students at Virginia Tech. But got to give big props. Jermaine Farrell, I know Jermaine did a write up and an interview with you a few years back, so I got to tune into that a little bit here. But just to read some from Jermaine's article, Chris Kinzer, if you don't know him, he kicked at Virginia Tech from 1985 to 1988. His best season was the 1986 season where Tech went 10-1-1 and won the first ever bowl game. Chris was 22 of 27 on field goals that year, 6 of 9 from 40 and longer, and made 6 game-winning kicks, including that game winner against NC State in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. And also, Chris recently just retired from teaching after 27 years of educating the youth in the state of Virginia. So, Chris, I guess we'll bring it back to the very beginning here. I know from watching a little bit of that interview, it sounds like baseball was really kind of one of your first loves as well. But growing up in Southwest Virginia, what made you want to enroll at Virginia Tech and be a Hokie?
I can. I used to go visit my late grandmother Louise Kinzer on the weekends when I was a kid, and my grandmother would always listen to Virginia Tech football on the weekends, and I would always sit there in her kitchen and listen to the ball games. We're talking in the mid 70s, early 70s, mid 70s, and of course then, I wanted to be a gobbler. They were before they were known as the Hokies, they were gobblers, and I'll never forget. And I can remember a lot of things about Hokie football back then. I can remember they beat Auburn one year at Auburn, which was a big deal. But I remember distinctly Virginia Tech playing Florida State, and I don't know the exact year. It had to be 74, 75, somewhere in that neighborhood. And a guy named Wayne Latimer kicked a 61-yard field goal against Florida State in Lane Stadium. And I'll never forget the excitement in the announcer's voice about that long of a kick. And that kind of really, I think more than anything, that kind of lit the fire that, I grew up 20 miles from Blacksburg. I wanted to be a gobbler since I was a kid. And even though I took official visits to other schools, I knew where I was going all along. So it was kind of a dream come true to go to Blacksburg and walk that campus and play in that stadium. It was a dream come true for me.
Now, when you enrolled at Virginia Tech, I was chatting with my dad and I said, "Hey, listen, we got Chris Kinzer coming on." He was like, "No way, that's awesome." You watched the video of the kick. Chris was a straight on toe kicker. And he said, "Yeah, Mark Mosley, this guy on the Redskins, he was a toe kicker too." And it seemed like Virginia Tech loved the toe kickers, the straight on toe kickers. And we were kind of one of the last schools to change it to, the soccer style kick.
Right.
But what was that like as far as what was your strategy, and kind of just tell me the evolution of how we went from the straight on kicking to now you never see that in the NFL.
Well, the interesting fact, the least I think that's interesting about, when I was a Mark Mosley wannabe through high school. 1982, when I was a senior at Pulaski County, Mark Mosley was the MVP of the National Football League as a kicker which is the only time that's ever happened. He carried the Redskins that year. And most of the people will say, "Hey, he carried the Redskins that year." And later on after my career at Tech, he ran a kicking camp for years that I actually kind of ran for him up until probably the mid to late 90s before I got out of it. And Mickey Thomas followed me at Tech. He followed me at Pulaski County. He was also an outstanding kicker. And then you had Ryan Williams from I think Ryan's from Suffolk. He's the one that had half a foot. He was a great field goal kicker. And then, of course, Shane is also a Pulaski County grad, but Shane is soccer. And Shane's probably the best of all of us. I wanted to be Mark Mosley. So started going to his camps. I tried to copy everything he did, including the type of shoe he used. The year that I had in 86 very much mimicked what he did in 82. Very rarely do you see a field goal kicker, carry a football team. But in 86, we were very good between the 20s. But once we were very not very efficient. Hence, I was 22 for 27 field goals that year, and I was 27 for 27 on extra points. So I had just as many field goal attempts as I did extra point attempts. So offensively, we weren't really efficient. So I reaped the benefits of that because I got to kick a lot of field goals.
I was going to say 93 points in 1986. I know. I think Joey Sly might have broken some points records a few years back, but
right.
And as far as kickers at Virginia Tech, I feel like we have had some very solid kickers over the years. John Love, for example, has been phenomenal this year. I know he's
always been great.
90% of his kicks.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 1986.
Okay.
And before we talk about the game, let's zoom out a little bit. Want to know, what was the landscape of athletics in general at Virginia Tech? Minus kind of what was going on in the football program, but generally, where did Virginia Tech sit in relation to basketball, in relation to baseball? We were an independent, no conference affiliation, but what was it like just as far as the athletic department?
Football and basketball ruled the roost. I mean, those were your big revenue makers. There was a lot of controversy there that year with Bill Dooley, because Bill Dooley was the athletic director and the football coach. And Coach Dooley took real good care of us. And I still think he was a good football coach. But when it came to being an athletic director, obviously, with the passing of some time, you realize that he may not have been the best athletic director. And I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, because I really loved Coach Dooley, because he gave me an opportunity to go to Tech. But those two, with basketball and football, they kind of ruled the roost. We were independent. And it was, as a kid growing up, I remember in 79, Tech tried to get in the ACC and they were denied. And then I think later on in the early 80s, they tried again and they got denied. Ended up in the big, I think Frank realized it was important to get into a conference. So he got us into the Big East and then eventually in the ACC, which, I thought I'd never see the day we'd get in the ACC. But I'm so glad we're there. And I think we should be there. And I want to say something about Frank too. When I was being recruited at Tech by Dooley, you never heard anyone talk about winning the national championship. That was never, ever, ever something that was brought up. And when Frank came in and at the opening news conference, he said something about winning the national championship. Well, half of us thought he was crazy, because but that just shows you the greatness of Frank. He changed the mindset of a lot of people, and we came really close to winning the national championship in 2000 or 99 with Vic and the game of Florida State and New Orleans. So, it's things have changed a lot, obviously. But back in those days, it's just a lot different. I mean, a lot different. Look at girls basketball now; it's freaking phenomenal, and you'd be lucky to get 2,000 people at a game back in those days.
And then, we double click in on the football program, knowing that Coach Dooley is the AD. He's also the football coach. And, there were some recruiting violations. But what kind of distractions were kind of dominating the headlines, or kind of, a lot going on off the field in 1986?
Well, that year we were told of a lawsuit that Coach Dooley had filed against the university for a breach of contract. We were told that, I believe it was I want to say it was after the Cincinnati game, and you got a bunch of young kids that don't know what's going on, and the ways of how things work. We just wanted to play football and try to go win, and I'd probably be lying to you if a lot of us kind of rallied around Coach Dooley to try to finish it out strong for him, because we didn't know what was going to happen. And ultimately we were told it was his last year; he would not be back, and it could have been a big distraction, but we kind of focused in on just playing football. And I think Coach Dooley did a good job making sure that's the way we approached it.
And then, you speak on playing the season for Coach Dooley. Who are some of the young stars and then really leaders of that football team that led the way and were voices in the locker room?
I would point to Maurice Williams, Eddie Hunter, Eric Chapman, Steve Johnson. There was a bunch of guys there that were really good leaders, strong people. Bob Frula, Mike Clapp, our offensive lineman. You had Mark Webb, you had Carter Wiley, you had Curtis Talaferro. You had some really good football players on that football team, and we had two. Think about it. Back in those days, Bill Dooley was the brother of Vince Dooley, and the Dooleys were known for run-based offenses. The old joke was, Tech was 3 yards in a cloud of dust because we ran the football. But had that particular year, you had Eddie Hunter and Maurice Williams, who both ran for over 1,000 yards. And then you had Eric Chapman, who I think threw for 16 or 1,700 yards. So, again, we were really good between the 20s. We just sucked once we got to the 20. Hence why I kicked 27, or I had 27 field goal attempts.
So you spoke on it, how when Coach Beamer got to the podium when he was being introduced, saying they're playing for national championships. And meanwhile, Tech just won the first bowl game.
Right.
Coach Beamer goes on, the bowl streak, 26, 27 consecutive bowls. And by the end of the bowl streak, we're out here taking bowl games for granted at this point. And,
right.
You can also talk about how bowl games have a little less value in college football now, just with big money and folks opting out and all that. But in 1986, Virginia Tech had not ever won a bowl game. What was the magnitude of being in the Peach Bowl, getting that bowl appearance, getting to play in Fulton County Stadium? Can you describe kind of like what the vibe was and how big of a deal that was for Virginia Tech at the time?
It was a very big deal, because we all were very aware of the fact that Tech had been to 4 bowl games, and that would include a team that Coach Beamer was on in '68 when they played in the Liberty Bowl. And they had been to 4 bowls and never won a bowl. So we were very aware of that going to Atlanta, that Tech had never won a bowl game. We knew that. There was a lot of stuff in the news about it. We knew, and I wouldn't say there was pressure. We just wanted to go play, but we knew that Tech had never won a bowl game. We knew that. So, and it was a big deal.
So a couple questions were submitted via Twitter, so definitely want to read some of those. In regards to the Peach Bowl, an account called Higher Loyalty, they have awesome Virginia Tech content, a lot of scrapbooking and images from Hokie games over the years. They say, how did Chris manage such a calm demeanor when NC State tried to ice him? Set the scene for us.
They actually had an injury they had gone down and kicked the field goal to take the lead 24-22 with about a minute and a half to go. We had run out of timeouts. We had a pass interference call on David Everett down in the left end zone. They had somebody get hurt, and also on that drive, we had a Maurice Williams, our great running back, faked an injury to stop the clock, and it was the worst acting job in history. And how that didn't, how it wasn't a penalty, I don't know. But right before we kicked the field goal, they had a defensive tackle get hurt, so we were on the field ready to kick. Then they called a timeout to try to ice us, which was good with me because we were kind of being with no timeouts. We were rush, and when they called the timeout, it kind of just slowed things down and gave us time to get set up. And quite frankly, Pat, I was probably too dumb to know better. I hate to say that, but I remember the first time my daughter was old enough, she wanted to watch the game, and I'm sitting there watching the game with my daughter, and it came down to that, to the kick at the end, and I was sweating bullets. I was nervous as all get out, and I already knew the outcome, but I just I was always taught to try to be like the duck. You want to look calm on the surface, but your feet are just a pitter pattering under the surface. So I was just trying to look the part, but trust me, I'm sure my heart rate was up a little bit.
And we'd be remiss if we did not ask, and I know this is kind of one of the trademarks of the kick is the post-kick celebration, running by the NC State bench.
Right.
I know you said you just said it, but young kid in college having a good time, and here's the thing. It's a legendary celebration in the eyes of Hokie fans, and we got the win. But what is your commentary now for folks who haven't heard it?
I've apologized for that move numerous times. I'm 58 years old. People have got to understand that you grow as a person and as a human being, and that was a dumbass kid that just did something that now. This doesn't make it right, Pat, but that was done to me first. I didn't just do that just on the whim. It was done to me first, but obviously the camera was on me. But nevertheless, I was in the wrong. And I hate the fact that may have detracted from the fact that was an outstanding college football game that year. Sports Illustrated named it the best bowl game of all the bowl games that year. So to do anything to frown or to make my university and my team look bad, obviously I'm sorry for that. I never wanted that to happen. But like I said, I apologized a bunch of times for that. I've moved on. I mean,
and if you can't laugh about it now, then what are we even doing, right?
Hey, dumbass kid, man. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that were young that not many of us got through our younger years not doing a few dumbass things. So,
oh, exactly. And I'm sure. So you get the win, and Lee Corso's on the call, which is
right.
Iconic, knowing how far Lee Corso has come within college football media. Just an absolute legend. And if you get an opportunity, go on YouTube and just watch the highlights from the 1986 Peach Bowl. Truly legendary day for Virginia Tech, legendary moment for Chris and for Bill Dooley and for that 1986 team, sending him off in style. Higher loyalty. Question number 2. How much did the team enjoy those New Year's Eve parties that night? Any legendary stories or celebrations to note?
Uh, I, you know, I had to stay at the stadium after the game to do a bunch of interviews, so I didn't get back to the hotel till almost midnight. And I do remember when I rolled into the Marriott in downtown Atlanta, it was the throng of people there was just unbelievable. Hokie Nation really, I mean, you had 20,000 people in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl. It was 43 degrees. It was freezing cold. It was just a zoo. I remember getting back and honestly, I think I just went to bed. I was so freaking tired. But I remember getting back to Blacksburg. I can remember we did some celebrating when we got back.
Yeah, I asked my dad about that game because him and my uncle Kenny, they were both on the soccer team at that time. They stormed the field. He said that bowl game was epic in Atlanta. Flew down with Kenny, got a free ride to town on an RV. Stayed with a buddy's dad for free. Ate with an alumni for free. It was a classic college weekend. Won the game, stormed the field, and that sealed me becoming a lifelong Virginia Tech football fan. I'm sure it did for tons of Hokies that night, Chris. But thank you, because I would not have been a lifelong Hokie fan if my dad was not a lifelong Virginia Tech fan. But 2 more questions before we roll into rapid fire here.
Okay.
One from Grady Baker. What is your favorite Bill Dooley story?
Oh my. Let's see. There's a ton of Bill Dooley stories. The one that I always remember, it was actually Peach Bowl week. One of the days they took us up to the Atlanta Falcons training facility to tour the facility, to have lunch, and they had a stage set up where we were eating, and there was a mother and her 2 daughters that they had hired to clog. They were cloggers. I don't know if you know what a clogger is, but it's sort of like tap dancing, but not tap dancing. And all 3 of these ladies were very attractive ladies, and they were dressed in little skirts, and I mean they were very very good looking ladies. And after they finished their routine, the mother, and you got to get they're on a stage, so we're sitting down low, and Bill Dooley's sitting down low with the rest of us, and the ladies are on this stage. And she asked Bill Dooley to come forward, so he got up and walked right up to the edge of the stage, and she turned around and faced away from him, and she reached up under her skirt, and these, I guess they're bloomers or underwear. They're yellow. These things come down. It hit the floor. And I'm like right behind Coach Dooley, and I'm thinking, is the lady going to freaking moon him? What's going on here? And she bends over and she flips her skirt up, and she has a red pair of panties on. And it says, "Go Dogs." And she said, "This message is from your brother Vince." And that's when she did that. It was the damnedest thing I've ever seen in my life. I still to this day can't believe you're sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, she's gonna moon him." But it was from Vince Dooley. Vince Dooley had hired her and paid her to do that. So that's my Bill Dooley story.
Vince Dooley had jokes for Bill Dooley, former Virginia Tech athletic director and head football coach. I'm sure a unique situation to see your head ball coach have to deal with a prank from his brother.
Oh, it was crazy.
And then understanding now, Chris, that you have a role in current game day operations, would love to hear about that. I'm sure Hokie Nation would love to hear about that as well.
It's last year when I started, and again, Carol Walters she's in charge of all that. So the first thing that I would say to Hokie Nation is the people that are on the field behind the scenes to pull things, to make things run smoothly. I was blown away last year, just watching all the different people and what they do and their roles. There are a lot of people down there that work hard to make things run rather smoothly. So that's the first thing I was impressed with, and that's something you don't, as a player, you probably you don't see or you don't know. But the people that deal with the officials, the chain crew, those guys, all the people that make sure the gates are manned, and of course, Steve Hale and the TV timeouts and how that works. I mean, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. It's just I got a great appreciation for what those people do and how they make it look rather smoothly. I'm sure there's some glitches, but for the most part, I think it runs rather smoothly.
It's a ton of fun seeing what game day has become over the years, especially, it's been a special season at home. And I think a lot of folks are fired up about Coach Pry and what he's been able to do as far as not just beating these teams at home, but putting us in comfortable positions in the fourth quarter rather than,
Yes.
And I know this weekend it'll be it might be a little different just because of that defense at NC State. But we'll roll into some rapid fire here, Chris. Got a few questions for you, and then we'll let you go. But dinner with 4 people, dead or alive.
Hold on, Pat. I can't hear. My dogs are barking at something.
Someone at the door?
No. Thank you, honey. Well, okay, I'm sorry.
They must be getting hungry. I brought up dinner. I said dinner with 4 people, dead or alive. The dogs want a seat at the table. Chris, who are you bringing to dinner, and where are you going to eat?
Who am I bringing to dinner? Who am I going to dinner? Can I say my mom and my dad?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
My mom and my dad. As an adult, my mom and dad are older and don't get to see them as much as I used to. And you get to the point where you realize that there's going to be a day and time that you can't do that. So mom and dad.
And where are you taking them to eat?
Oh, good Lord. They'll probably want to go to Cracker Barrel.
There you go. Serve it up. Okay, Chris, when does Christmas music start in the Kinzer household? Because there's a lot of debating. Hey, November 1, it's Christmas music versus, Black Friday. The tree goes up Black Friday. But when, I guess, 2-part question. When does Christmas music start? And 2, when do you put up the Christmas tree? Because those could be different dates.
We do all that in our house. We do that the day after Thanksgiving. My wife is a senior vice president for service management for Sirius XM Radio, so they already are playing Christmas music, and it's a big deal with Sirius. So they're already playing the music. But in this house, it doesn't go up until after Thanksgiving.
There you go, and that is the right answer. Just for everyone out there, that is the correct answer. Favorite vacation spot for the Kinzer family?
Oh, without question, Nag's Head, Outer Banks.
Outer Banks, love it. And then score prediction for Saturday.
31-17 Tech.
There we go. Score more than 30. I think we can do it. Lastly, Chris, we call this Sharky Shoutouts. Want to give you an opportunity. If you have anyone you want to shout out, or if you have a message you want to deliver to Hokie Nation, here's your opportunity. But appreciate you coming on here tonight.
I'm glad to be on with you tonight, Pat. And any message to Hokie Nation is just remember to be positive, have faith in Coach Pry and what they're doing and the process. And I really like the direction we're headed. And I know patience is something a lot of us don't have, especially as fans. But I for one, will always have faith and always believe in what's going on in Blacksburg. So it's a very special place to a lot of us, and that'd be my message.
That's Chris Kinzer, everyone. Appreciate you coming on, Chris. Hopefully we'll see you around this weekend.
I'll be look for the chubby bald guy in the end zone. I'll be down walking around. I spend most of my time with Steve, the red hat. He he goes out for the TV timeouts. So I'll be right there with him. It's supposed to be chilly Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
so I'll probably have I might wear shorts and a sweatshirt. I don't know yet, but yeah, I'll be walking around. You'll see me. I can't miss the ball. Well, I may have a hat on, but usually can't miss my melon.
We'll come find you down there. Awesome, Chris. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you very much.